justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind.
Episode 3 definitely wasn't it for me. Episode 4 though, let's jump into episode 4. Episode 4 to me was the best episode so far. I don't know. I guess you could say I'm wrong, but I don't know. I have something about the way Phil thinks, even though, as we talked about, Phil could possibly be an asshole.
He's definitely an asshole.
Yeah, he's definitely probably an asshole. We saw that with the Knicks for sure. I mean, listen, Phil has not aged well. Let's be clear. Phil has not aged well.
None of them have.
Not only how he looks decrepit. Somebody needs to get Phil some help. You know what I mean? Please. You know, they mentioned the Hayoka, which is the backwards walking person. Well, Phil is walking forward into the sunlight. You know, he is walking into the light, and he is not long for this planet. All right, so let's talk about episode 4. Now, episode 4 kicks off. We kick off with Dennis still, and essentially Dennis's vacation. Which
we gotta talk about that.
We're going to talk about that. But before I get into that, let me talk about. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that because this is going to lead me to the theme. I just want to make it clear that the binger that they give us is very PG. They don't give us the truth of the binger as MJ elaborates in the episode.
The bender?
Yeah, that binger, whatever you. I mean, he's binging. You know, I don't know. I binge food all the time when I'm fucking up my diet, so I call it a binge. I don't call it a bend. What am I bending? You know, I've broken the diet. I'm not bending it anymore. You know what I mean? I haven't bent these rules, so I'm calling it a binger, and I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Dennis are the same. Dennis probably woke up with a couple midgets, Carmen Electra, maybe a horse. It's essentially probably the scene that we see in Hangover, but even worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's talk about that, though. I can't even think of a recent time that something like this has happened. Isaiah Thomas's sister dies, and Isaiah plays in the next playoff game and scores 50. Dennis is essentially just tired of this bullshit, as we mentioned in the last episode, and says, I need a vacation. Fred, I know this probably makes you sick because Fred will play through a million injuries. I've seen Fred play with a leg so fucked up, I couldn't walk on it. Fred, what did you think about the vacation?
Bro, it was insane. And remember, I was talking about it earlier, the fact that, like, that would have driven me up a wall. It just for everyone who else is not doing it. There's probably people that want to do that. But they're like, yo, I can't, you know, like, just for either my game would suffer or, you know, that's just, you just don't, like, not come to work. You know what I mean? So the fact that everyone knew it was a bad idea and he like, proved everyone right. Like he's like, yep, it's a bad idea. And the thing is that's where I'm kind of like, he knew the power that he had, right? He had the money. He's doing whatever he wants. Like, nobody can do that, you know? And, you know, just side note, I saw an article and it was like, man, Carmen Electra still has her fastball. Because she's got to be like 50.
She looked good. She looked good, but how much work has been done, though? That's my question.
Yeah, but you know what? She didn't look that. The work.
I'm working every day on myself, and I don't look good. So you know what? I whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? Stay up, Carmen. You're beautiful.
But it was reckless. Now, here's the thing that I found, you know, kind of odd. But then it kind of almost like kind of respected Jordan. Was the fact that he went to go get him himself. Like, this is like, I mean, like, they have handlers. You know what I mean? Like, and I know, like, in today's NBA, you know, you got guys who are, their sole job is to just do those type of errands. You know, it could be from, you know, they deal with that type of stuff. They'll go get you and, you know, they'll fix, you know, like if your car got messed up, they take it to the body. Like, just weird, dumb stuff like that. It's almost like a parent.
Yeah.
You know, and Jordan went to get him.
Well, they couldn't wait for a plane, Fred.
Yeah.
He jumped on the PJ. He jumped on that private jet and went and got it.
Yeah, dude. But he did that himself was insane, man. I don't know if other dudes are doing that. Because as much as, like, Jordan is kind of like this, I would feel like that to an extent was beneath him,
Mm-hmm.
almost like kind of the way you see everyone talking to him, like Rodman never went to his room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are these guys like teammates and not stopping by their rooms,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, there's probably some trifling stuff going on in each room that you don't want, you just don't want to know. But for some reason, that really stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, the best player on the team, going to go get him.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he knew that it had to be him.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody else, Rodman probably would be like, nah, man, get out of here.
Yeah.
But he knew how he could influence Rodman. So he said, my face there is gonna make him get on that plane. Because nobody says no to Michael Jordan. Yeah. So that really stuck out to me, man. In as far as the whole bender, you know. But you know that you're seeing like all these videos, like, you know, my man was like mad reckless. Mm. Like, I don't know how he looks like he has like some sort of disease.
All the STDs. He is a petri dish for STDs right now. His blood could cure the coronavirus if it doesn't kill the person that it's administered to, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's gonna be he's gonna be one of those people that damn, what's that name? That dude from there's the guitarist for the Rolling Stones. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, they're like 80, you know, and they're still doing stuff, and it looks like he's still living the most horrendous life ever, and he's still kicking. Yeah. You know, and you got like people who are completely healthy, dying.
Is that Flea?
No, Flea is Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no. If I show you a picture of this dude, you'd be like, man, he still looked like he's like getting it in, and he's 70. He's got to be 70.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that kind of stuck out to me. And again, just like he did all that and just like came to work the next day and just started rocking out. You know, I was like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, some people are just built for that type of life.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But much respect to Jordan.
Yeah, Vic, what did you think about that? And even to Fred's point, beautifully said, Fred, about no one says no to Michael Jordan. Vic, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is wild to think about that could happen, mm-hmm. and that almost nobody would know about it outside the team. And it's interesting, they couldn't have told the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. So like, it had to be Michael, mm-hmm. because like Fred said, he can force Dennis to come, mm-hmm. just because. But then also, he's not sending Steve Kerr mm-hmm. on his private jet to go get fucking Dennis Rodman. And they couldn't send a lot of other people because they didn't want it to get out. Mm-hmm. And for all we fucking know, Jordan might have been in Vegas already. So he might have just grabbed him on the way back.
Yeah, that's a good point, because they're never clear about that. They're not clear about that, and that's exactly what I thought. This motherfucker was gambling. He said, "Oh, Dennis is here. Let me go get him real quick."
No, but you know what though? Here's the thing: when you have a private jet, like, there's literally people who they go on private jets for dinner, like in mm-hmm. like countries, and then they come mm-hmm. back. Like, mm-hmm. that's not like a normal thing mm-hmm. to like elite rich people. I mean, that's like nothing. You know what I mean? So you could be stuck in traffic, you know, in LA for an hour on a plane to Vegas. That's nothing.
Yeah, and MJ is a famous gambler, so I'm sure he's taking money from every state in the country.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. He has like, he probably has his own runways that mm-hmm. only his plane goes to.
Yep.
They played an exhibition game there. And I can't remember if it was the 96-97 or 97-98 season. They played an exhibition game in Vegas, the Bulls did. And they had gone to the hotel that he went to so much, that casino, that they both got comped like suites where everybody else had a room together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's
but like, they wouldn't even charge. The owners of the hotel wouldn't even charge the team for the rooms.
I mean, MJ built that hotel pretty much. You know, it's built on MJ's back. You know,
it's crazy.
No, I think that all valid points. I think social media. Thank God, social media is not around. this 898 team doesn't make it through.
No, they blow
year.
up. They would have blown up.
You know what I mean? They're so close to blowing up, but by Jordan's sheer force of will, they stay together. So I think this is great. This brings me to the theme of the episode. So what I have here is one word: adapting or adaptation, whatever we want to say. This episode is largely about everyone's ability to adapt to the circumstance. MJ adapts to this Rodman situation, essentially by going out there to pick him up. But more importantly, we've now met Doug Collins in the previous episode. Obviously, MJ loves Doug Collins, and this might be the most important moment in MJ's life career as a basketball player. Doug wants the ball in his hands. MJ, sure as shit, wants the ball in his hands. He's the greatest player of all time. But adapting to the situation, which is Doug Collins leaving by unscrupulous circumstances, which is very Games of Thronesian. As we mentioned, Phil may or may not have orchestrated this, and I'm sure Vic can elaborate on that a little bit more. MJ gives up this control, adapts to Phil taking over the team with Tex Winter, more importantly, who it looks like this is a thing I didn't know in this episode. MJ and Tex may be at odds, to say the least. You know what I mean? MJ doesn't want to run this offense. Tex says there's a better way to play basketball. Tex is right. MJ learns, he adapts, understands that this could unlock whatever. This is what allows Scottie to become as great as people think he is, because that was the point of me pointing out these stats in the previous year. Scottie wasn't even your second banana in the previous year against the Cavs and against and in fact, he is the third leading scorer on the team behind Craig Hodges, and in the Pistons series is the fourth leading scorer on the team behind Craig Hodges and behind fucked up free throw form. What's his face?
Bill Cartwright.
And Bill Cartwright. Scottie is at this point is not, you know what I mean? But the triangle offense helps. So adapting the whole thing. Paxson adapts at the end of the game plan. Phil adapts to the Doug Collins situation and takes advantage, becomes the coach. Scottie adapts to this change and credit to Scottie. He ascends. Doesn't just get the opportunity and not be shit. He gets the opportunity, adapts to it, and ascends up. What do you think about that, Vic? What did you think about the episode? What did you have as a theme if you had something different there?
Well, so let's talk about the offense. So Doug comes out of the booth, right? No previous coaching experience. Goes from being the color analyst, commentator, and then gets picked up to be coach. Now we talked about this before about how Krause wanted to hire Phil as a coach in training with previous, where Michael's first coach was a Stan Albeck or whatever his name was.
And you also spoiled the story, by the way, Vic. Credit to you. I mean, you spoiled the story word for word in the last podcast about Phil showing up with a bad outfit and then just really took the air out of this. Yeah. I said, I seen this shit before, this fucking rerun story.
Sorry,
not to cut you off.
This is not. So Phil's not the orchestrator, essentially what I'm trying to get at. This is Krause's intention the entire time. Because as it becomes clear, Krause sours on people very, very quickly. Whereas Michael is kind of like the opposite. Hates everyone at first and then learns to love them as he gets to know them. So, of course, he doesn't tell Doug Collins this is the plan when he hires Phil. But this is a second attempt. So he really, really wants Phil. In particular because he's been sort of enamored with Phil Jackson since he scouted him in college. But then also he knows that Phil is like, I'm a defensive guy, right? Even as a player. And they talk about the comparison between him and Dennis. And the other theme of the episode is that kinship that Dennis and Phil have. But he knows once Phil becomes a coach, he's going to let Tex run his offense, which Doug won't, and which the previous coach wouldn't either. Which is why somehow this assistant coach is outlasting the head coaches in Tex Winter. But they also talk about how Doug wasn't the best fit because he was perfectly cool with letting Michael dominate the game,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what Phil always gets credit for as a coach is having the 13th, 14th, 15th guy feel like he's just as important as some of the starters. Now, he always made it clear, the first practice, Phil got into the gym and he said, Michael's up here and the rest of you guys are like here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So he lets them know right away where the hierarchy is, but still Phil give, Paxson and Kerr enough confidence to get into a game and hit a big shot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also, in the documentary, I don't think it says this, but I've read that Joe Dumars, after they beat them, the last time they beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're using the triangle offense.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Dumars comes back into the locker room, and after they have time to celebrate, and he goes, next year, they're going to be a real problem. Because the Jordan rules won't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just load up on them because now they have spacing. They know what they're doing. And like any motion set, everybody has a job. So there's nobody standing around either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So even as a defender, you're a lot easier to guard, even if when you don't have the ball. But if you don't have the ball and you're not moving, then I don't really have to do shit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're moving, you're a threat, even if you're away from the ball. So even if I have to turn my head away from the strong side, I don't know what's happening on the backside, I can't help.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Michael didn't want that, to your point. He would, no, stop telling me to give the ball. I'm going to give it to this dickhead. He's going to miss the shot.
Yep.
Right? And like, he hated Bill Cartwright because they traded Charles Oakley, his best friend, on the team for him, right? So in practice, he would throw passes at Cartwright he knew he couldn't catch. Just to be like, he got no hands, coach. I'm not giving him the ball.
Mm.
Yeah, so the change in it all, right, is when Phil leaves, when Phil finally becomes the head coach and Doug is out because he's too willing to give Michael the ball. He's too willing to please Michael, which is very interesting, which is also why when Michael came back from the Wizards, he hires Doug Collins, to be his coach, to be literally his coach.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also far too emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When they talked about he would leave the bench drenched in sweat like he played.
Yep.
Right? Where Phil, you couldn't even tell if he was paying the fuck attention to the game sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So this episode and or these episodes kind of together show the change in dynamic of Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have that scene where who's open, Michael?
Yeah.
And in the documentary they make it seem like he asked him once.
Mm-hmm.
I've read he had to ask him 3 or 4 times before Michael would answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knew the answer, didn't want to answer.
Yeah.
Because that meant he had to pass the ball.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think that's great. Fred, what did you think? Did you have a different theme or do you agree with the theme of adapting? And also, what do you think about what Vic just said?
No, I mean, adapting is the biggest, and I talked about that earlier, knowing that you have all these different characters and you're able to make it work, even despite all the crap going on with management and your coach. Mm-hmm. I'm getting more, this really sheds a light. And I guess I like I said, I kind of wanted on purpose to be kind of ignorant about a lot of the stuff that was going on because I felt like it was going to ruin my perception of the team. But Krause was the definition of like someone trying to give themselves a haircut, messing it up, right? Because he thinks he's got that line straight, and he just takes a little more off. And takes a little bit more off. Like, this dude assembled a great team and then destroyed it at the same time. Like, where would you ever see this happen again? Mm-hmm. Like, and, just like he had, again, like, they do point out, like, he will fall in love with people and then he just couldn't stop, he couldn't get off their pipe, basically. You know what I mean? Like, he just, like, he couldn't, so it was, I'm getting aggravated because, when I find out a lot of the stuff that he was doing, almost as a Bulls fan growing up, because I'm like, wait, there could have been more? Like, are you serious? Like, My man.
Yeah.
Yo, like that. I can't think of where that has ever, and maybe you or Vic could name someone who blew up a perfectly good team. I don't. You would think you would almost have to, like, you really have to do it on purpose. Like you would have to have like an evil heart. But like he thought that he was gonna like do something. Like I don't know what was in his brain about that. So I think that the theme was adapting, and then it I think when they talk about Phil, kind of his journey into his kind of like he kind of was like this like weird dude, and it felt like only a weird dude could really make that type of situation work, right? Because he was even keeled, right? He was able to put his ego to a side, I guess, for to make things work, right? And whereas, I mean, even when you talk about, well, if we go back to the last week when we were talking about with Pippen's bad contract, you saw a completely different reaction between Jordan and him. He was like, I get it, bro. I completely agree with you. Jordan was like, nah, like we trying to win, bro. Like, so he was able to adapt, and he was able to like orchestrate that whole team to make it what it was. And then it was also, the same thing you were talking about, the everything, hitting the fan. And part of that is like they always just remind you a little bit like this was Krause. Like I was getting aggravated, like I already said it 100 times, but the fact that got announced in the middle of the season, and like that the beginning of the season, I'm sorry, and the fact that the greatest player in the world said, I am not going to play without Phil Jackson, and you say that, you destroyed like that team. Like it was self-sabotage. So he gave himself a jacked up, shape up, and that's,
I think that's a great fucking analogy. There are no basketball equivalents to this. The closest thing I can think of is the Thunder. This recent Thunder team breaking up too soon, trading away James Harden, and then even more, kind of more like this is the Suns of the early 2000s. Just kind of, they have Steve Nash, they have Stoudemire, they just keep recycling guys, bring this guy in, let this guy go, bring this guy in. They seemingly have the guy with what's his face, Shawn Marion. They let Marion go. They got Joe Johnson. They let Joe Johnson go. They just keep doing that. And that's an all-time what-if team. Probably should have gotten at least one championship. But, the shout out to Brian Colangelo with the fucked up collars who essentially submerged that team all on his lonesome. But yeah, I think to your point, this episode, so the main character essentially of this episode is Phil Jackson. And I thought it was weird that they bled the Dennis Rodman the situation into this episode until you understand that, they're trying to paint the synergy between Dennis Rodman and Phil Jackson, that a guy like Phil, who is essentially culturally appropriating American Indian culture and is using that to bring Dennis Rodman into the fold now, also culturally appropriating Puerto Rican people. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't happy. He's not happy being a white dude.
No, he doesn't want to just be a white guy. And to the point that I started researching his background, because I was like, wait, is he Native American? I had no idea. And it's no, he just wanted to be it.
We grew up around the reservations.
Yeah, exactly.
He was as white as you could think of.
As you could get, yeah. And his playing career is exactly that. He's I can't think of his equivalent at the court, but I'm gonna think of his equivalent soon. He fouls a lot though. So one thing I do want to touch on before we continue moving forward is I want to talk about Doug a little bit, because Doug's playing career, some of this is even almost like an underlying theme here that I just kind of came up with right like that, because at the top I'm just ill like that, right? Is there is almost a living vicariously feeling here. Doug Collins, if you knew his basketball career, is a 6'6" shooting guard essentially, whose career is cut short because of injury, but is a score-first player. His career, his best average is 21 points a game. He averages 18 points a game for his career. And I think he may see himself in Jordan to a certain extent, which is maybe why he feels so comfortable empowering Jordan to that level. Is there a little bit of possibly living vicariously? And then to move to Jerry Krause, this fucking short, pudgy, just has every worst quality a man can have. And unfortunately, God rest, rest in peace. Half of his, I don't know if he had a stroke, but half his face is sleeping, and the rest of his body is lazy too.
Yeah, it's like if Danny DeVito had a stroke.
Yeah, he's an ugly Danny DeVito, and that's fucked up. And is there a little bit of living vicariously through Phil? You know what I mean? You see someone like Phil, tall, in New York, probably slinging wood. You know what I mean? I got to assume getting high. And is there a living vicariously? Vic, do I have something here? Doug living vicariously through MJ, Krause living vicariously through Phil, that leading up to an explosion, essentially. What do you think? Do I got something there?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point. I don't know if I've ever seen or read anything.
That's what I'm here for.
To that extent. But yeah, maybe. But also, I just think, like, you see it in Doug as a commentator, and even as like always considered as a player coach. He just wants to be liked. He wants to, and he also wanted to be a part of greatness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Fred, what do you think?
Yeah, man, I think that's a really good point.
Again, that's what I'm here for. Keep showering me with the compliments. I unlike Jerry Krause, am getting the compliments I deserve early. Go ahead.
But it's almost like what was Collins's stats, like averages kind of in the NBA?
Yeah, so he averaged 18, 3 and 3 for his career. His best season was 21, 4 and 3. So
I mean, he was a good player.
Oh, for sure.
Like, yeah. And so I think there's almost like a in his mentality, like, oh, we're good players,
mm-hmm.
right? Like we can relate.
Yeah.
Like I was a good player. You're a great player, mm-hmm. and then how him and Jordan got close, But again, probably they were close because he was like a yes man. He was like,
for sure,
like he was like that parent that spoils their kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And but what happens is when that kid don't get his way, it's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
But that I do peep that. Now, in regards to, has Collins ever been successful as a coach?
That's a great point, and credit to Bill Simmons, who said this after we parted ways. I don't think we fired him. We both sides parted ways about Doug Collins. Doug Collins would last 3 years in the NBA, and then teams just tended to he just would lose the ears of his players because he's a yes man, because he's too nice of a guy. He wants to be liked by everybody. After a while, no one gives a shit what he's saying. And that has been the story of his coaching career. So has he had coaching success? He's been an okay coach. He doesn't have a lot of losing seasons. His time here wasn't a failure. You know what I mean? He didn't fail when he coached the Pistons. He didn't necessarily fail when he coached the Wizards. Doesn't fail when they coached the Bulls. As MJ says in the documentary, well, you better be fucking sure because you're about to fire a guy who just took us to the Eastern Conference Finals. You know what I mean? So has he been successful? No. Has he failed? No either. You know what I mean?
Quick question too. When his time, I'm sorry, this is a side note, but when he was with the Sixers, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we have Vucevic?
Yes, Vuce was the backup at that time. And
he hardly played.
Yeah, we had buying. We were hoping for buying them. Who else did we? I can't remember who we had. Do I have to recant this painful fucking time?
I'm sorry.
We had trash fucking Elton Brand here too. Do I gotta talk about what Elton's done to us?
the dude has had a good career, and like I'm like, well, did he just like suck when he was with us? Like, that always kind of like I'm like, why was I don't know. That's always bothered me for some reason.
Yeah, his Doug's career on both sides. His best career was a color guy for TNT. That was his best career.
Yeah.
Because as a player and as a coach is very much like unfulfilled potential. You know what I mean? His career as a player, especially, again, injuries, even to not to get too far into Doug Collins' life and career, but his most famous basketball moment is refusing the gold medal at the Olympics, which he to this day has never gone back to get. So it's very much a career of unfulfilled potential, you could say. You know what I mean? It's no different as a coach. I wasn't even joking when I said as a color commentator, he was fucking incredible. He was fantastic. You know what I mean? One of my favorites. Him, like Steve Kerr, like those are two of my favorite guys. All right, yeah. So what, Vic? Was there anything else you wanted to add on Doug before we move on, or do you want to just jump right into the Games of Thrones Littlefinger type plot that Phil Jackson
we need to talk about is Phil Jackson a snake? And there's so much more information about it. Would you guys like me to give it, or do you guys want to talk about it first?
Okay, let's do a brief introduction about it, and then Vic, I want you to give us the plot. So the way it's painted in here, all right, is Phil gets close with Tex, and Doug, who is obviously still bothered by whatever happened, and I can't even compare. I'm trying to think of a time where I've answered a question like that, where I'm fucking fuming about something still, and you're asking me to like elaborate on how I feel, and I'm just giving you one word answers, and I don't give a fuck how awkward it is. You know what I mean? It's like, yep, yeah, I'm good. So what happened here? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine. And it's like, he's just someone answering. He's obviously pissed off about it. And essentially, they begin undermining Doug, so Doug is removed, and Phil is seamlessly replaces him. And it's dirty, and we learn later. Again, we've learned through Phil's later career. I mean, listen, Phil's time with the Lakers is interesting, and I think if there was an opportunity here to give us the information that Vic, you're about to give to us, that would have repainted the narrative of Phil's time in the Lakers. Phil leaving, writing the book, especially shitting all over Kobe, and then coming back. Everyone just assumed that happened because Kobe was such a fucking asshole. But now you could reframe this based on some of the information, especially that we're going to get here, we're talking about, that, well, maybe Phil was also a little bit of a cocksucker, maybe. I'm using really colorful language right now. But go ahead.
Fred, what do you think? If you had to answer the question right now, is he yes, a snake? Is yes Phil Jackson a snake or no? Just
the answer is yes on my part. I'm just going to say yes. I'm sorry.
It's just yes or no, Fred?
No.
All right. So you took one of the things, right? He writes that book about Kobe after he leaves the Lakers, and he comes back, and then they win more championships. So the Jordan rules, right? They were the thing the Pistons implemented to play defense, but then also Sam Smith, the beat writer for the Bulls, took that and made it into his book about Jordan, and a lot about his behind-the-scenes stuff. So a lot of the stuff that, like Michael said, you're gonna think I'm an asshole once you learn it, and a lot of the gambling stuff too, including where Sam Smith finds out that Jordan has written checks for like hundreds of thousands of dollars to someone who was later murdered before those checks are cashed. But anyway, he gets a lot of information leaked to him, right? Phil tells Jerry Krause Johnny Batch is leaking information. Now, Phil hates Johnny Batch. Why? because Batch tells Jordan every now and again, "Fuck the triangle, go do you."
Oh.
After in the huddle, Phil's telling them, "Do the triangle," right? So he goes behind his back. He tells Jerry Krause, "Man, someone's leaking information. It got to be Johnny." So what happens? Johnny gets fired. What comes out later is that Phil's the one who leaked the information about Michael.
I didn't know that.
To Sam Smith. And then blames it on Johnny because he wants Johnny gone.
Well.
Maybe that needs a snake.
Fred adapting. Again, the theme, adapting. Fred adapting now that Phil's a fucking...
You have the Kobe book, and in the Kobe book, he talks about how, like, during the whole Denver, Colorado sexual assault thing, he's like, Kobe would only take private jets. He would do this. He would do that. And then you have the Doug Collins thing, right? Where, again, I would argue that's more Krause's intention to get rid of Doug.
Yeah.
Because he's so much in love with Michael. And the reason that Krause hired him in the first place because he thought because this would be his first year coaching, he would take more to Tex Winter being more of a co-coach, but he didn't. But yeah, so all of those things, and Johnny Batch was like Michael's favorite coach besides Doug because he was always like, "Do you, man? Like we need you right now. Go do you." Even though it was like in contrast to what Phil was saying, to the point that when he got inducted into Hall of Fame, he brought Johnny Batch with him instead of Phil Jackson.
I think that I you know what? I didn't realize that. I didn't know that it came out that Phil leaked it. It makes sense. Phil, which I'm looking up now, and I will talk briefly in a moment. But he, again, there are things that happened with his time with the Knicks that are very similar to this. I mean, it's just very Phil leaking stories about Melo to the press, while also just doing his job part-time. I mean, it's not really a pretty situation with his time with the Knicks. And, yeah, you know, I think a lot of these coaches may not age as well. I think that's going to happen. That may happen generally. George Karl is a perfect example of that. We talked about him. I mean, he's aged the fucking worst. I mean, he looks like a raving lunatic now. And, you know, and I talked about the Sean Kemp thing. Who knows what kind of negative impact he might have had on Sean. I mean, maybe Sean is just going to go, wood chopping or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? My man is out there. But, you know, I think these are great points. So as we move on, though, the importance of Phil gets highlighted in this episode for sure. Again, aside from the Dennis Rodman being able to kind of rein him a bit, it's Phil that essentially allows these guys to all adapt and become better. And we get to bring back what we were talking about earlier with Fred. The culmination of that is them beating the Pistons. And to Fred's point, this is the exact what Fred you said, and I wanted to cut you off. I should have just yelled at you to shut up for a second. I had the exact same thought last night watching episode 4. What does it take to be a leader, right? And what does it mean that you make your teammates better? Sure, on the court, there are ways to make your teams better. I would say MJ's strongest attribute on the court is that unflappable resolve, right? It's that confidence. Paxson wasn't going to miss another shot once MJ hit him because the best player in the world is hitting you to hit this open shot, and there's no chance you can miss this now because he believes in you, right? That is what made him the on-the-court leader. Obviously, the ball movement, his ability, my man is averaging 35 points, 34 points a game. He is the best, the most dynamic scorer, arguably the most dynamic scorer in NBA history. We say that the sky hook is the best NBA move, but maybe being Michael Jordan is the best NBA move because there's no way to stop it. And essentially, he says, okay, so you want to take the ball out of my hands. And you want me to control the ball less. And you want me to score less. And this is going to be good for us. How? Fine, I'll try it out. He tries it out. Boom. Championships. Now, the other important part, because all of this, see, championships, and this is like Malcolm Gladwell, which is I forgot which book he talks about this in. I think it's Outliers. I'm sorry. Outliers is the character from Shakespeare who was outside all the time instead of inside. You know what I mean? The inside was King Lear, but the outside is Outlier. It's Outlier. Fred is enjoying this shit. It's off screen.
I don't know why that was fun.
Oh my God. It's the problem.
He is the Outlier. Anyway, Malcolm, let's bring it back here. I'm really enjoying it too. That's a good joke. Good job, Brian. I gotta pat myself on the shoulder. I'm red. I'm red. All right, so outliers. Victor did not. He's a teacher, and he thinks that I'm a son of a bitch for butchering King Lear. All right, so outliers. Malcolm Gladwell's book talks about how winning championships isn't. It's about preparation, but it's also about luck. And luck comes into play here because this is also in effect kind of sort of the end of the Pistons run. The next year the Pistons completely fall apart. They self-combust. You know what I mean? It's time. It's over for them. Dennis gets shipped off. And you know, Isaiah is not necessarily the mark of health. Lambier is pretty much over for Lambier. And that's the end. So this is their last run. But more importantly, again, to bring it back to what Fred was talking about, it's that at the end of that season, when they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals, MJ commits himself in a way that which is crazy to think about. In today's NBA, you see LeBron working out, you see these guys hitting the weight room, and that's like, what else? Of course, you're hitting the weights. Back then, that wasn't the case, and that's always when we're talking about all-time great players, you need to take those things into consideration because you don't know what would have happened if instead of Larry Bird cementing his fucking driveway by hand, he was in the gym working out. It's a completely different story now, and now you're talking about Luka back in 1980. You know what I mean? As opposed to Larry, whose career gets cut short, kind of. But MJ, Scott adapts to this. Horace adapts to this. All of these guys adapt. Not only do they adapt physically, but mentally they adapt. And I thought it was a great way they point out Scotty taking that hard foul, getting up and not even reacting to it. Because that is a true mark of evolving. Like that evolution is like, bet, no problem. That's like a thing that the Clippers, the recent Clippers with Chris Paul and Blake and them, they couldn't figure that out. You know what I mean? How do you take the bad situation, adapt to it, and make it good? That is the mark of. That's why MJ is the greatest. And they say it. This was finally the episode we've been waiting for. Say the words we've been waiting for. Scotty says it. I couldn't have done this without MJ. You know what I mean? None of this happens without MJ forcing us into the gym. And I think that this to me is the climax of the episode. That's the most climactic part of the episode. There's not a lot of allegory, in my opinion, but this is what it comes down to. This is what brings the championships. Vic, what do you think about that? What did you think about that part? I mean, how important is it, right?
It's everything, right? Because the idea that you can only make your teammates better on the floor is ridiculous. There are empty assists. Assists don't mean that you making everybody better, right? It just means you have the ball in your hands, right? But being able to push these guys over and over and over again, push them to a plateau they couldn't get to otherwise. I said it before, but you know, I've also read that Scotty admits that his first 2 years in the NBA, he didn't work that hard. The first time he had money, and he was like, I'm gonna go have some fun with it, and that's why him and Horace got along so well because they were both in that same boat. But after that, Michael started getting his asshole, and then he had to change his lifestyle. Mm-hmm. They in the second three-peat, they form the Breakfast Club, mm-hmm. which is MJ, Scotty, and Ron Harper. And they start lifting every morning with Tim Grover before practice to stay in shape and to get ready for the season. But, yeah, I mean, it's that psychotic competitive drive to push everybody either around you to a higher level or ultimately it shows their true colors. Mm-hmm. If you can't take me in practice, you're not going to be able to take Detroit in Eastern Conference Finals.
That's a great point. Fred, what do you think?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this, when it comes to that leadership piece, I don't think it's very rare to be able to find, I think in my opinion, a player that can influence other players, to, even other good players, the way Michael could, where they actually changed their behavior. You got to remember, these are millionaires, men in the prime of their, of like when you with money, it's so easy to get distracted. But Jordan was able to keep winning as the sole focus. And, it seemed that almost the approval, and this is where I think this is the line. It was Jordan's approval than everybody else's, right? Where I think now, or it's just the fact that there's not a player like that, where it's like, you kind of want the masses approval. And then it doesn't, your teammates are like over here. But to have someone to trump the approval of millions of fans, the media, like that doesn't matter. It matters what Jordan says. I don't think you're not going to see that a ton in our lifetime, because you need someone not only great but like psychotic, to a degree where there's almost a fear. And not to come, no, I'm going to compare, but like LeBron, I mean, I don't see that type of cycle in him. And that wasn't needed. I mean, some people could say it is, some people could say it's not. I mean, he has rings, but he was able to will. Like, it just seems like Jordan's able to get every ounce of juice out of that team. You know what I mean? And and he grew too. I think one of the things is I think a lot of people fail to realize that even though he is a great player, he does evolve, right? Even if he wasn't about it, he did evolve. And I mean, they even talk about when he was younger, like he was actually getting better and taking coaching and improving. So that really that kind of resonated with me. Just his leadership and how he was able to influence people to do what he wanted I don't think you're going to be able to see that,
Yeah, no.
In a while.
He is it's the mark of leadership. This is a person who I think he's walking the walk. And Horace Grant says it in this episode. He says something along the lines like, you see the best player working that hard. You can't let him down. You know what I mean? And that is exactly right, because like you said, there's a million guys with the talent, but talent don't get me to work hard. You know what I mean? If you're not working hard, what's my incentive? If you don't care that much, why should I? You know what I mean? Meanwhile, MJ loses the Eastern Conference Finals, and one of my favorite things about that, you could almost see it see the cogs moving in his mind during the interview. You know what I mean? Where he's talking, he's super calm, he's super even about it, and you just know, you know what I mean? In his mind, he's thinking, I'm going to fucking do whatever it takes. Next year, this is not happening again. And it took everyone coming together because everyone wins a championship. So now, with that said, they go through, they beat the Pistons finally, they sweep the Pistons. They bust the Pistons' ass. The Pistons, who, if you watch the Pistons documentary, that's one of my favorite all-time teams. Isaiah is one of my favorite all-time players. He was my favorite point guard before Chris Paul, who is essentially just Isaiah now. Kind of takes that reign. And that team has a similar story here. And they talk about it. Get over the Celtics. And they fall in line behind Isaiah, who leads them to the promised land finally, nestled in between some of the greatest teams of all time, the Celtics, the Magic, facing off against the Bulls. But that brings me to the next point. Well, let's before I get to my next point, let's talk about John Sally. Vic, you wanted to make some points about John Sally, who I don't want to say I hate him. I don't know John Sally personally, but he fucking irritates me. John Sally famously said that he just likes Isaiah better. He said Isaiah was the best player he's ever played with, and that's not the truth because he played with MJ later. But he just likes Isaiah better. Did he also? I think he also said Tim Duncan wasn't that great because he's a fucking idiot. Anyway, go ahead, Vic.
I don't know about Duncan, but he'll make statements like he admitted to last night. He was the best player in the 90s, and then next time he's on TV, he would say something like, "Oh, you can't be the best if you couldn't like he's like, the way that we beat them, I can't say he's the best player, as if like, you know, he was the most important part of that Pistons team. But anyway, just admitting to the hate last night, and on SportsCenter, finally admitting that he was being a fucking troll for the past like 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Being a fucking troll. And it just made me wonder, like, how many other of these guys are like that from the time period? And like, if you watch the Dream Team documentary, was that a ESPN one or HBO one? Either way.
No, it was actually.
It was ESPN, wasn't it?
No, it premiered on NBA TV.
Okay. Well, whoever had it, whomever owns that, they'll talk about the scrimmages that were even, you know, were harder than the games because they're playing against each other, and, you know, Magic not wanting to give up the mantle as the best player, but by the end of it, like, had it concede, right? So, like, if Magic, Larry, if these guys, right, top 5 players, the best players of their era, the one right before Michael Jordan takes off, right, is saying, like, you know what, yeah, it's him. Then John Sally, who gives a fuck what you guys say? You know, and it's crazy that after 20 years,
for the
you can finally
just
admit
something
to
that'll
hate.
find in the rhymes
Like,
that
I
are
would,
coming from
honestly,
my
I just would have
mind.
rather him just been a hater forever. Just take it to the grave with you, bro. Like, you're gonna, like, and this is not like this is not me an affront to have people having personal growth and deciding, like, all right, I'm gonna be better and different. But even when he was saying it, he was like smiling about it, as if like he's gonna be like fucking what's his name on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and go back in the closet in the next episode.
Oh, Mac.
Yeah, it's like, and next time he's on TV, he's gonna be like, you know, I thought about it, and George Gervin's the best player ever. Like, I can't fuck him. I just needed a second to say fuck him.
Yeah. Fred, you got anything to say about John Sally?
Yeah, bro. I mean, the thing is, like, dude, that Jordan hate is real. Like, for all them dudes in the day. Because the thing is, like, you got to remember, Jordan changed the game. And so to see someone who was just another player, like, in your league, who is able to be so much more important than you, can hurt your ego. You got to remember, these guys are all athletes who were like the greatest things since sliced bread for their whole life. You know, grade school, high school, college. Then you get drafted, you get into the NBA, and now you are nowhere even near that planet.
You're not even starting on your own team.
You're on a completely different solar system.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're not going around the sun. You know what I mean? And so you're like that. The thing is, though, like, Jordan killed the dreams of a lot of people. And for, you know, I could see why it's hard to admit, you know, that he was he was the greatest. I feel like it's more of a compliment because, you know, if that's why I couldn't win, it was because I had the greatest player to ever live. That's what stopped me. What's stopping everybody else nowadays, right? You guys don't have that. So, but yeah, like, I mean, John Sally has made a living more importantly, just with his mouth, more than whatever he did on the court. So, I mean, you know, even with the Best Damn Talk Show, like all that stuff, sports show, whatever, like that's what he's known for. Yeah, he's a troll. He thinks he's a comedian. Like, I don't think he's that funny. Like, I mean, like,
it's like that video. Your clothes are whack. Your jokes are whack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that he's and
whack.
It's just weird how, like, some of them guys are able to, like, stick around for so long. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, again, he was in that base, so I can't hate too much. But yeah, bro.
Yeah, John Sally, a bench player on the Pistons. He was good, I guess. Whatever. He was there. You know what I mean? He was there. And he's a hater. But nestled in there where John Sally was sitting on the bench during the last plays of the game as the Pistons walked off after getting thoroughly thrashed by the Bulls, but by a newly improved Scottie Pippen, by MJ being the GOAT, they walk off the court. Now, this is going to be a nice topic of conversation. I'm interested to see and what you guys think. I think Vic and I may be a little bit more aligned. Fred, I'd like to see what you think. But one thing I want to mention is Isaiah Thomas said this in the documentary yesterday, but this is actually a thought that I had years ago watching the Pistons play the Celtics. Or maybe it was mentioned in the Bad Boys. I don't even think it was mentioned in there. I just had this thought. And when the Pistons beat the Celtics walked off the court before the game was over. You know what I mean? They walk out without shaking anybody's hands, and it wasn't a fucking problem because it was basketball Jesus, Larry Bird at that time. They were the class of the NBA, arguably. Even were they really? Danny Ainge is a son of a bitch. And they walk off the court. And you know, now a few years later, the Pistons walk off the court. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't fucking bother me that much. You know what I mean? MJ is obviously, I can't even believe why. I don't understand why MJ, that was one of the most human moments in the documentary. It's probably one of the most human moments I've ever seen MJ have. You know, outside of him crying with the championship with his father, that reaction to, I don't even want to see what Isaiah has to say. Whatever he's going to say is bullshit anyway. Like, I've never seen MJ talk that way. You know what I mean? He's usually measured. Even when he gave the Hall of Fame speech, it was like a measured attack. You know, it was a tactical destruction of anyone who's ever criticized him. But this was like I wasn't ready for this. I didn't have a planned response. And I don't even want to see the shit. You know what I mean? Whatever about Isaiah. So what do you think about that, Vic? What did you think about the Pistons walking off?
All right, so there's so much here, and it's really about what you believe, because ultimately you're not going to know unless you were there. Mm-hmm. So John Sally himself didn't walk off the court. He was on the floor, and according to him from last night, he asked back in the game because he didn't want to walk off the floor. He wanted to shake hands.
Oh yeah. Right.
I don't know if I believe that, but whatever. Sorry. I think they just cleared the benches, and his dumbass is on the bench.
John Sally's not important. Isaiah said, I want to walk off the court, and he took the other three best guys, and they said, leave John here. Leave John. John, you want to shake hands? Fuck out of here. Go ahead.
Well, according to them last night, right?
I'm sorry, but real quick, didn't they? I thought Isaiah said Bill Lambier said, yo, we're out.
Bill, whatever. Lambier
it's supposed to be Lambier, according to
Isaiah. Again, evil heart.
Yeah.
Evil heart.
Bringing it all the way back.
So there's a lot to unpack here. So first, you got to remember that Jordan is not normal. So it wasn't even that, like, he was upset. I think it's more as, like, he used it as motivation. Kind of like when he makes up those stories that never happened, right? So for him, it's like he can't let anything go, and he turns every situation into motivation. But yeah, I mean, but still, for him, it's like disrespect, because what he always did after every series, like he said, was shake hands with them. And like in the accounts I've read, they always weren't willing to shake his hand, but one person he always did was Dumars. They actually had a really good relationship as guys who like guarded each other the whole time. Mm-hmm. However, according to like stuff that I've read and heard about in the walk-off of the Celtics, is that at that time, fans would still get on the floor at the end of games. So the reason that, according to them, the reason they walked off is because they didn't want to be on the floor when Detroit fans started storming the court. Because anything could fucking happen at that point. Now, when the Bulls beat them, they were at home, so their fans were not going to storm the court because they lost. But again, it's up to what you believe, right? Larry was also a crazy competitive son of a bitch. Like maybe he was like, "Fuck these guys, I'm out of here," or maybe. But I also do believe though, like, I don't want to be on the floor when it's getting stormed.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a good point.
But again, this is all, who knows?
Yeah, it's word of mouth here. Fred, what do you think?
No, man, I actually kind of side more with Jordan, because and just with his thinking, right? these are things that, like, you pay attention to these things, right? So, if I ever felt disrespected by a team, then I will give you that same disrespect back, right? So if you're not shaking hands, then okay, I'm going to do that. So the fact that the Pistons, like Jordan has said, like, he's like, yo, them 2 years that, I gave him that, like, showed him love, and then for them to walk off, I think it was an ultimate. It was disrespectful. And even Lambeer had that, like, he said, yo, Lambeer was like, yo, we out. Like, it was that was such a Lambeer move, bro. And and then everyone followed suit, and like I felt like they were just like, they kind of had this, that bad boy mentality. It almost gave them the leeway. And I think my thing is, like, if someone like knowing that obviously the greatest player, was even when he lost, was able to, show you respect, I would have remembered that. As me as a Piston, and I would have to show him respect back, not just walk off the court. And I guess, what you call it? I think Horace Grant, did he call him a bitch? Did he call him like a bitch?
Yeah, he said just
they walked off like
bitches.
bitches.
Yeah. Dude, for real. It was like, they're like, yo, I want my ball. I'm not playing no more. Like, that type of thing was like, man, like, that's the way it came off. And that's just the way I feel about it. I feel like, if I showed you respect and you can't give me that same respect, you can't man up to the same thing I was able to do when I lost and I was in pain, then, that I think that was low. That was low. I mean, and then I guess, that they were hurt, though. Their feelings were hurt because they knew it was over.
Yeah.
No, these are also the guys that said Larry would be an average player if he was black, too.
Yeah. So. Which is the famous Dennis Rodman. Listen. I guess I'm a bitch too, because if I was on the Pistons, I'd have walked off with them. You know what I mean? And you know what? I have listen. I'm a good sport. You know what I mean? Depending on who I lose to. No, I'm a good sport depending on who I lose to. You know what I mean? When we play, all right? You're not going to just fucking look at me incredulously. You're going to let me explain myself first, all right, you son of a bitch? When I respect the person that has just trashed me, and I've gotten trashed countless times, you know what I mean? Because I'm not good. I'm okay. I'm actually really good. I'm sorry. I'm very good. And I get trashed by people who are very much better. And if I respect them, I show love. But it's like the shit talker, the one who's talking shit, especially the John Sally. I'm not shaking John Sally's hand. I promise you. You know what I mean? If John Sally's on a team that beats me, I'm shaking everyone. I'm shaking the guy behind John Sally. And then I'm stiffing, get the fuck out of my way, John, and I'm shaking this guy's hand because it's that guy that I can't stand. The one who's the fifth best guy, but the first mouth. You know what I mean? So I can't say I agree, but when I watched the Pistons documentary on the ESPN, the Bad Boys one, I remember understanding. You know what I mean? I understood it because it wasn't one. They all said Lambeer said it. I don't know if it's actually Lambeer's idea, and I'm going to say why. Because Isaiah was like universally hated at this time, and I do think that there's a chance where Evil Heart Lambeer gladly takes the blame for it, but I don't know that is actually him who said it. We kind of learned that Isaiah, even though he's soft-spoken, that soft speech like spits knives out all the fucking time, kind of says crazy shit about Magic. Obviously backs up Dennis when he says the shit about Larry, and I don't know, but I just remember thinking like this was like a family thing. You know what I mean? It kind of harkens back to, in a very sacrilegious way, the way Bill Russell kicked everyone out of the locker room. I forgot what championship that was, Vic. You might remember when he kicks everyone out the locker room just to be with the team when they won. And it reminds me of that same thing in a different way. Like was about us. It's not about you. You know what I mean? This is the ending of us, and we hurt together. You know what I mean? You guys are on the way up. We're on the way down. Let us die alone. So that was kind of how I saw it. I didn't have a problem. One last thing I wrote down here. Neither one of you guys watched Westworld, right? I'm guessing.
Not after the first season.
No, it's fine because after the first season, you wouldn't even know what the fuck you're watching. Good thing that you watched the first season. I wrote Violent Delights. These violent delights have violent ends, which is a famous quote at the end of the first season, which is very emblematic of what's happening here. You know what I mean? They play the beginning. They show you this ascent to greatness, and then they bring us back to 98 where it's turmoil and it's the end. It's coming to an end essentially. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. I think we covered it all. You know
Yo,
what I mean?
where's Tony? Does Tony hate them so much now that he won't even like want to be interviewed? Can he not relive this anymore?
Whatever my odds were last week when I said I don't think we were going to see Tony, I'm going to say that my odds were like, I don't know, 50-1 that we were going to see him, or 50-1 that we weren't going to see him. You know what I mean? So I would have gotten that bet at plus 500 last week. And now it's dropping to plus 250. I don't know. How is it going to make sense? We just ran through the guys. We ran through the guys. They even showed B.J. Armstrong, who looks like he was just moved from 92 to today.
Yeah, Black don't crack.
B.J. ain't age of fuck. Black don't crack. That's not a lie. Unless you're Michael. Michael don't look good. And Scotty don't. Scotty looks like he has some sort of disease. He don't look good, man. But anyway.
Michael's eyes are like red. Like forever.
Because he ain't slept in 30 years. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
He look like he got sickle cell or something.
Oh God.
It does.
Horace looks good too though.
Horace do look good.
He actually looked a little younger than he did when he played.
He looks like he can grab rebounds still.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But listen, Tony was like fucking harassed by them. Like
Tony's gonna get his own episode. I'm telling you.
I don't think so.
I'm telling you.
Listen. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Next, we already got the preview for the next two.
Yeah.
Right? Tony's not in those.
It's the 92. Let's talk about this. It's the 92 Olympics, right?
Yeah. Which they're gonna have to talk about Tony there. So if he gets interviewed,
isn't that the 96 Olympics when we talk about Tony? That's when they harass him. It's 96, I thought.
Jordan only plays on one.
Okay, so it's 92. So they harass him in 92. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
You're gonna have to talk about him.
They are.
Then yeah, but I don't know if he's gonna get an interview, man. Like I don't think he might be traumatized by all this. He might not be able to watch any of this. They harassed him so much. I watched I watched clips where he just screams, "Tony, you know why I gotta yell at you? Because I gotta yell at you all day." Like, that's not even a reason, bro. Like, why are you yelling at me?
I don't think they're going to talk about Tony. I'm going to be honest with you. And now the odds have dropped to 300-1. It's your time. If you want to get in here, it's time to bet. You bet 20, you get 600. That don't make no fucking sense. I'm sorry. You bet 20, you get 6,000. That makes sense, I think. Yeah. Yes, it makes sense. 300-1. I don't know that we're going to see Tony. You know what I mean? We should have seen the preview for next week, the 92 Olympics and Tony. Like Tony talking. Oh, yeah, and these guys, I don't know what his thing would be. These guys harassed me in 92, all right? And then I joined them later. And then the book stuff. You know what I mean? If it don't happen next week, I don't know that it happens. We don't even see him in a lot of game tape clip. We just ran through the first 25 games of the season and talked about Dennis and his shit. And did you see any highlights with Tony? I bet Tony don't even want his fucking don't even show replay of me playing basketball in this shit. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I don't think Tony's gonna be here. All right. Are any last thoughts you guys have? Anything you can think of?
Nah, man. Just rest in power, Tony.
Rest in power, Tony. Fred, anything?
Oh, man, we're good.
Listen, nobody says no to Michael Jordan. That's the theme of this episode. Fred, you won today or something. I don't know. All right, everyone else, wash your stupid fucking hands. Stay at home. All right, we can get out of this. Unlike Tony. Tony can't get out of this, but we can make it out. Be safe, everyone, and that's all we got.
Yo. Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come